Hi, welcome to Pearls of Motherhood. I'm your host, Tessie.
And I'm your host, Diana. We are so glad you're here with us today. This episode is truly special. It's a story that stretches across continents, branches of service, and phases of motherhood. She's a mom, a military veteran, and now a human resources manager at Amazon. But even beyond all that, she's a woman who embodies resilience, depth, and fierce love. She was born in the UK, the daughter of a Caribbean mother and Afro-British father, and eventually made her way to the US, where she found love, became a mother, and chose to serve and protect her new home by joining the military. We're talking about navigating early motherhood in a foreign country, embracing military life as a mom, the invisible mental and emotional scars we carry, and the beauty of the chosen family. So this conversation is full of heart and strength. Please welcome our very good friend, Sarah Thomas. Hey, Sarah.
Hi, nice to see
Hi.
you guys.
Thank you
Oh,
so
hey
much for
guys.
being here.
Thanks. It's great. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this episode. It's like so dynamic, so many parts to it.
It is. It is. Writing this outline, I didn't know where to start. I was like, how do we encompass all of you in just a few seconds?
Okay. My parents actually, my mom and dad could be the ones I can start the conversation with.
Okay,
Then,
go ahead. Tell us about mom and dad.
in my recollection of growing up, my mother was a quiet one. She was a quiet giant in all my memory. My dad was always catalyst, moving, making things happen. And to be honest, he was the one that was the loudest in the family. So if my father was sick at home and he couldn't speak, it was a very normal good day. But if he was very busy and active, he was always telling us what to do, what not to do, thou shalt not kind of deal. And the rules was like in place. So we lived, my brother and I lived a very sheltered life. We didn't really have a lot of friends that came to us. So we was very selective individuals that would come to visit us.
So, growing up, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Great Britain? Did you grow up in the Caribbean? Where exactly were you?
So my initial growing up was in Nigeria.
Okay.
So I remembered in the household, my grandfather lived with us. So that's my dad's dad. And a lot of my friends, or I should say family, would call him granddad on the chair because he was always sitting down, but he was moving slowly but sitting down. And he was the grandfather that always had stories. So if we wanted story time, or if he wanted to talk to us back in the day of the Second World War, what he remembered living in Liverpool at the time, he had great stories. I was that grandkid that was very cheeky. I would collect all his stories. And then when we would visit my grandmother in Liverpool in the UK, I would tell her, hey, granddad said this and this about you. I didn't know that they were not talking or they were, not amicable. But the one great story I remember about my grandparents was my grandfather had no hair in the middle of his head. He was very bald. And I will ask him, I say, hey, Dan, granddad, what happened to your hair? And he told me, quote unquote, your grandmother hit a radio on my head and my hair fell out. So I took that story and I told my grandmother. I mean, I didn't really tell her. I said, why did you hit my granddad with a radio on his head? And she looked at me and goes, it wasn't a radio, it was a frying pan.
Ah!
And I think my mother, she saw my instigation and she actually pulled me aside and says, I need you to stop taking stories, as we would call it there, run tell that, between these two individuals because they lived in two continents wide apart. And but they were very instrumental in my upbringing, especially my granddad.
Mhm.
I will always say if I ever had to have another granddad, I hope I would have him because I relied on his storytelling. I didn't rely on a lot of other things, but his patience with us as grandkids was very instrumental.
Oh, so you grew up in Nigeria for how long? How long were you there for?
I grew up to when I was about 17, and then I finished school. At that time of, you trying to make a decision if you want to go to university, what you want to become. And um, I don't know exactly what made the journey to the UK, but all I know is my dad was like, "Oh, you are having eyes for the boy next door. You gotta go."
Smart dad.
Yeah, right.
That is that was a breaking point. I think that was the time, and I will never forget it. He realized that, oh my gosh, the boy next door obviously likes me and I liked him. And like I said, it was a very sheltered life. And my dad did think twice. So to my mom says, why didn't you send her to the UK? And that was it. I was in the UK within a few weeks.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Wow.
but the
Do
funny
you,
part is, I do remember with my dad's conversation, he said to me, "Oh, mark my words, you're gonna be coming back to Nigeria because the UK is not all that." And I was so determined to make it. It wasn't like a make it till you fake it. I was like, I'm gonna make it till I break, till the wheels falls off. So coming into the UK as a young teenager, I did turn 18 while in the UK. It was a shock. The weather was a shock. It was coming from a whole different experience of sunshine all the time to freezing cold, not understanding there was a bus system, train system, and then having to start college because then college was free for 2 years and then you go to university.
oh, I
And
didn't know that.
yeah, it was different. I grew up learning the English, the British colonial language, like the English literature and all of that. Coming to England, I had to relearn modern English, how to write it and how to, make so much different sense when you're writing stuff. So it was like restarting all over again in college format.
You were learning a new language in a new country almost.
Yes, it was. That was a great experience of having to navigate through the nuance of being accepted in a society that you really didn't know if you were part of. I had a lot of family in the UK, so that made the transition easier. Like my mom's family was there, my dad still had his siblings out there, and my brother was there, so that was all very helpful. But if I didn't have that network, I think it would have been a lot harder than it was.
Wow. So you were in the UK for how long then after that?
13 years. I was there for 13 years. I did graduate. I know I did. I graduated with a degree. Business, I had a BA, bachelor's in retail design management. I felt like, oh, I can do this. And I did it. I don't know if I was aiming to be employed, but when I did get a great job, two things I did. I was in the Gap. I became a Gap employee and I loved the Gap. And the only reason why I didn't stay long in the Gap was because after 5 years, you get a Tiffany bracelet. I love Tiffany. And I was like,
Wow.
oh, I'm going to aim for this 5 years. While I was going through for 5 years, I graduated and then got me a really first time, first job out of college. And as soon as my 5 years was over and I got my Tiffany bracelet, I was out, like out the Gap. And
Wow.
my main job was I was a what was it, business accountant, just helping the business collect credits and debits from creditors. it was a great experience until I met my husband at the time. And, you know, looking back at that, that was once you have a goal, which I always do, I just run to it, make sure I could accomplish it no matter how I accomplish it, get something from it, and then I move on to the next. And I think the next was motherhood.
So tell us about how you met your husband at that time.
Okay. It happened at Christmas. I went to a party. He happened to be visiting his family in the UK, and I was visiting his family. And we in the Caribbean, we tend to have a lot of like late night parties, like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. It always consists of alcohol and dance. And they had informed my brother and I that there were families coming down from the US to visit. And I was like, oh, okay. Didn't think anything of it. What did happen was I was not planning to go. That was not my end goal. But Christmas dinner didn't happen at my house because someone, and I can't remember who it was, didn't show up or show out. So the dinner wasn't coming along. We were all hungry. So I said, well, we know there's a party going down the road. Let's go. And I got into the car and drove there. And he happened to be there. And I was like, oh, but the conversation didn't start there. We just kind of saw each other, said hi, and that wasn't it then. I think in 3 months after that, his grandfather, who he was visiting, passed away. So when he did come back for the funeral, that's when we did talk to each other.
So where is he from? Like, what's his cultural background?
He's from St. Croix. He was in the Marines before I met him, and when he had come to the UK, he had just finished his first tour or his first, well, state contract is what we say. Yeah.
So you guys have similar backgrounds? Are they similar cultural backgrounds?
Yes, his father
Okay.
and my mother
Easier.
from the same island. Actually, that's the funny enough.
Oh,
Thank
wow.
you for reminding me. So one of the reasons that my dad actually was really positive about our union was when I was
Oh, so
growing
dad
up.
liked this one. I get it. Dad liked this one.
That is true. Because growing up, I remember so fitly, my dad would say to me, oh, you are not going to marry this, this, this. So he had a list of things, what not to do, like I said. So when I married JR, he said, oh, well, his dad and your mom are from the same island, so I'm aligned.
He approves. Your dad sounds an awful lot like how I parent my kids. You know what's funny is that, like, I've been, you always doubt yourself as a mother, but I've been kind of like wondering, am I making the right decisions raising my kids? Am I doing the right thing, being so strict and sheltering them so much? And I feel like you're giving me a lot of validation right now.
Look at the outcome. It's fabulous.
I know.
Oh, the balance is there. If not for my mom being me and Garfield used to say good cop, bad cop, that's JR. We did that with our kids growing up. So I would always be the good cop, he would always be the bad cop. But we knew when we were doing this that we wouldn't have the kids play against us because they're very good. But there are moments
Yes,
when
they are.
I forget my role and I just become the evil cop and everybody, to include the father, looking at like, what happened? This became a new
Oh.
role here.
Oh, that's the truth, isn't it? We've all been there.
Oh, yes.
And it's funny because afterwards people are like, what happened to the good cop, bad cop? I'm like, I'm sorry, that was just out the window. I just had to let that go. It's like, you keep giving me a warning because it's funny because after I come down from this whole explosion, I see his face and he's behind the kids like, what?
Like, what happened?
They're all in shock, shell shock.
Oh boy.
Yep, we've been there. I've been there.
Oh, yes, very much so. And I just tell my husband, keep up. That's all I say. He doesn't, he goes, what happened? I'm like, just keep up, okay? Just keep up.
Don't ask questions.
Exactly. So, Sarah, how soon after you met JR did you guys get married and have kids? How did that all go?
So, yeah, and it's funny. I thought about both of my kids. We actually talked about them before they actually became um, something to talk about. So Dominic happened right after we got married, and he was in Antigua at the time, going to the medical school. That's brilliant. And
Yep.
I was still in London at the time. And in London, this is one thing I miss about the UK. One, not a lot, one. When I was working in the UK and I was pregnant, I was happy that you can get a whole year off for maternity leave. So the first six
Really?
months you get maternity pay, and then the last 6 months you get like a subsidy government pay, but you still have a job up to a year. I made a decision when I came down. I think I was 6 months pregnant in Antigua to stay instead of coming back to the UK because I felt like, we just newly married. He was in Antigua. I felt we were so far the distance, and in some ways, the decision was made. I would probably say it was very quick, not for me to return back to the UK and stay there. So we had Dominic in Antigua. Um, I didn't know this about myself, but I was not, like when you find a doctor, you find someone that you trust. I wasn't sure how the Caribbean was going to pan out, but I found a doctor. So I told him, like, you are the only one that's going to have this baby. Um, I think I started the precedence of my adulthood from there because I think when you have a baby, everything changes. Before that, everything was flipping like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get drunk till the sun comes up, or I think a lot of my stuff changed. Like even when the doctor asked me how you've been a smoker, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, they will say, when last did you smoke? I'll look at my daughter like, oh, that was 18 years ago, because that's when I made a decision not to smoke anymore. So a lot of my decisions changed and it involved this baby kind of deal. So it was like, pick this doctor, picked when I wanted to have her because I was told I could pick. I said, oh, I could pick. Then I thought I was gonna have a natural birth. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this. But I was in Antigua. It wasn't like the high-tech hospital. It wasn't like it wasn't a different era in my life. But I just trusted the doctor. But during the labor, everything decided to go south because Dominic says, oh, I'm not coming out like this. We're gonna do it the hard way. And I ended up
Oh
having a
gosh.
C-section because I got induced in the morning. I walked around, I did squats, I did everything I could to get myself to have this naturally. And I was like, oh my God, this is not happening. And everyone was looking at me crazy, like, you're supposed to be in labor. And I'm thinking, no, I'm not. I mean, I could run marathons right now because I'm still here. But what did end up giving me a C-section was late in the evening. And the C-section had to be put down, not put down as in, but I was in general anesthesia, so I was not awake.
Oh,
And by the
really?
time I got up or woke up, everyone had gone. I was like, okay. And then they brought the baby to me and they said, this is your baby. And I looked at the baby and was like, is that mine? But because I had nobody to tell me if this was my baby, I had to believe the nurse because
Oh my goodness.
she was.
Oh my God.
I know that was my first experience with her now. And I looked at her, I was like, is this really my baby?
That would be so wild.
That's insane. So I have a question. Where was your husband in all this? Where was he during the birth?
Yeah, good question.
So, okay, I'm wondering if he's going to see this, but this is what happened. My mother-in-law and Sandra, my sister-in-law, was there. They were obviously calming him down because he was very frustrated with certain things that was going on in the hospital, and he ran for a run. So when he ran wherever he was running near the hospital to calm himself down, by the time he came back, I guess I was already had the baby. So he did meet the baby. Everyone met the baby. Everything was good, but I was still sleeping because I was put under.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
and then obviously by the time I was awakened from the anesthesia, it was time to, everyone had to leave. So they all left me.
Oh,
I know.
Oh my God.
this is
This is the
wild.
wildest birth story I've ever heard.
Me too.
Looking back at that introduction, I met my first newborn, just me and her, and with questions.
Not.
Because then it's funny because the next day when they all came in, I was kind of mad. I wasn't mad, but I was like, "So you all left me?" They said, "Well, we were here for the baby. They're all waiting for the baby to come." And then I knew life has changed. You were second place.
You're second place for sure. Yep.
Oh my goodness. That's
Oh,
wild.
that's awesome.
I was wondering what it's like to give birth in a foreign country, and here you go.
Right? Whoa.
Well, I should talk to you about my second birth. That was in Germany, and that was phenomenal.
So just for the listeners, you've never given birth on U.S. soil.
No, I have not. I wish I did. No, I have not. I did say if I was going to have a third, I wanted to go to Japan so we become United Nations, but I know.
So what was it like postpartum in Antigua? What was it like? So obviously everyone left you and they came back in the morning. How did you handle postpartum? Did you have did a nurse come in and talk to you about like nursing and things like that, like they do in the US, things like that?
So in Antigua, I did have a nurse that did come and talk to us, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't pay attention to the nurse because I was more excited that I had a newborn baby. And then with my mother-in-law and my sister there, I think I also felt I was surrounded by other moms who, to be all old-fashioned, kind of stepped in and be like, this is what we're going to do. This is how you do this and do that. So I was set up to being, I wouldn't say pampered is the word, but being directed and cared for. I was lucky to have my mother-in-law there. She played a very instrumental part in not just with my one child, but the second child. She was, able to be a support. But when everybody left to go back, like it was just me and Dominique learning the steps of being a mother and a newborn baby. Um, I actually had to give myself grace, and I think I still do that when I talk to new moms. I always tell them, hey, with your first baby, do everything. Like, don't listen to all of this, anyone telling you this and that, because I know I did. But explore. And I think I did everything first with her. Like, I learned how to make baby soft food from scratch instead of buying the bottle from the store. Or um, I don't even know, but every Dominique, to be honest, I even tell her now, as I said, between you and your brother, you had the best of everything because I breastfed her all the way till she was 11 months. And then I think it was 10 or 10 or 11. And then the moment I put my boobs down for her to be fed, and then she spat them out. Oh, I started crying. I was like, oh my God, my baby doesn't need me anymore. I should have been happy for joy, but I was crying. I was like, boo hoo. I was like, what is wrong with you, Sarah? But because I had grown, it was just me and her. It was just like, okay, we can do all this together. And, we had a connection. And we did everything because even when I was in Antigua, wherever I went, she was on my back or she was in my pushchair. And listen, there were things I look back and I'm like, Sarah, you did that? I used to get into those gypsy cabs. You remember those buses, the white buses
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
they were dangerous. But me and Dominic were in those things going down the road.
She's fine. She's an adult. She's in college now. She's wonderful. She's alive. It's
The
good.
first is always the guinea pig, they always get all
She's
of
like
that.
now driving my car. I'm like, I'm still petrified. Like, oh my God, she's driving fast. I'm in the back of the car, putting my foot on the brakes. And then when she stops, she looks at me like, "What you gonna say?" I'm like, nothing, because I'm like, my life is in your hands.
So, where it sounds like you were really supported by your family during this postpartum time. Was your husband really involved? How did that work?
Yes. So he was, I would say if I could scale him on 100% involved in the breastfeeding, the diaper change, he was learning just as I was. I do remember one incident, and this is funny because we talk about it all the time. I took a nap. He was studying as usual in the sitting room, and he had Dominic on him, and she must have pooped the biggest explosion ever. You remember those poops that come out of your diaper and everything
Mm-hmm.
goes everywhere? That happened. I'm in my sleeping, I'm sleeping, and he runs into the bedroom with the baby, and he says, "Look, she pooped all over me." And I woke up and I looked at him like, "Oh, okay, that's nice." I went back to sleep. But he was petrified. And so yeah, he learned how to, make sure the diaper is secured so that poop stays in one place. Um, Another time when he had joined the military while we were in Antigua to come back to the US. And we got stationed in Fort Carson in Colorado. And Dominic, she's not even yet one. I think she might have been 9 months or so. And I said, "Hey, I'm going out." At the time, I used to do a lot of voluntary work on the military base. And I was going to my event and I said, "Okay, you have the kid." He goes, "I got the kid." I left him on the table, at the dining room table with his computer. And she was crawling at the time. And I came back. I don't know how long I was gone, but when I came back, she had gotten a box of tissues and put all the tissues out of the box. And there was a whole lot of mess, but he was still where I left him. So he forgot that the kid was still there. And
Oh
I
my
said, "Did you forget the kid?" He goes, "Oh, I wondering what that noise was." She was under the table where he was, just sat there and pulled one tissue at a time.
goodness.
So
That's awesome.
when it comes to stepping up, he has had elements of stepping up. Um, and I remember one time he says, "Oh, I need a breast because we're breastfeeding Dominique and we don't have any milk." So guess what I did? I pumped and I left him the bottles, and he was like, "Oh, you're not staying? No, you get the bottle."
You have what you need.
So
Go.
That's so smart.
first time rodeo.
So you joined the U.S. Army as a British citizen. What inspired you to do that?
Yeah, like tell us that experience. That's really fascinating.
Ooh, okay. It became, I would say, was a challenge. I think I mentioned it to you in the very beginning where I like to challenge myself and I put a goal. One of the goals that I had before even thinking, and I go back to this today, why did I join? That question, I cannot give you a right or wrong answer. But I was overweight, still had the baby weight from Dominique, and I decided I'm going to lose the weight, which I did. And I was excited about my journey. And I just woke up one day and I said, "Oh, let's see what they can do about this military." I think what really pushed me to join was I was working in Claire's at the time in the mall. And I asked my manager at the time, I said, "Hey, I want to know the entitlements or the maternity leave, what is it like?" And she told me, like, "Oh, you could be pregnant and then you have the baby, you have 2 weeks to be at home with the baby and you come back to work." And my mouth dropped. Like, I'm not gonna have time to be home with my baby? She goes, "Oh no, you gotta come back to work. 2 weeks."
Wow.
I was like,
Mm-mm.
"What?" So, and I went home. I remember calling Jay at the time because he was deployed. And I said to him, do you know that the maternity expectation in the US, in comparison to the UK, because at that time, like I said, I had a whole year off and I could do whatever I wanted to do before, if I wanted to come back to work or not. And in the US, I was given 2 weeks to bond with my baby and be back at work. I said, I couldn't do this. So again, the idea of the military came up and I decided, I'm going to throw my hat in. And I just walked into the recruitment office and I said, hey, I'm interested in joining. And the recruiter looked at me like, yeah, right. And I'm like, wait, why not? So he gave me the test, did it. I know, I must have looked like, he must have looked at me like, yeah, you're not too, you're too good for the military. But anyways, whatever the case may be, I did the test. I didn't think anything of it. And then one day he just showed up and be like, are you still interested in joining? Because at the time Jay was active, it would have to be for us to do family care, who would look after Dominic if I did get accepted because I had to go away for training. And I'm going to give you the honest truth. Separation was a thing I was not prepared to do, even though when I did say yes, I wanted to do it. That was my personal goal, but I don't think I captured the other goal of when you're away from your child, how would that feel? So my
Mhm.
first experience of being away from Dominique and Jaya at the same time, it was very daunting. It was like I was on my own journey, and it was not. I don't know if I could explain how it is, but I could push through. So joining the military was not an easy task, leaving Dominic behind. After going through basic and then going through AIT, that was when me and Garfield says, "Hey, do you want another one?" And I was like,
I'm sorry,
"Oh,
what is
okay."
AIT? I'm sorry, what is AIT?
Oh, that was advanced instruction training or something like that. It's like next level. So basic training would be the introduction into the military. This is where you'd be like you're no longer a civilian. You're now going to be the soldier. You have to learn all your soldier. What's the word we used to call it? Everything that would make you understand and believe that you are it. You have to be mind driven to be positive all the time. Because half the time, I would not lie to you, when we used to go for runs, I was not making it. But mind over matter, I end up, camaraderie and having people around you, we made it happen. And I think
Mhm.
that's why I stayed the course because of the friends that I developed in the military and then the experience of traveling places. But the other part of the military of separation of family, that was the hardest.
Yeah, that would be so hard. I can't even imagine being away from my babies for even one night. Like,
Yeah, right?
that's so hard.
How long were you away from Dominique and JR during that training time?
So the training was 6 months, no, 6 weeks. I think it was a little longer. Let
Wow.
me get it straight. It was 2 months for basic, and then the AIT would be 6 weeks. So
Wow.
I came into the military in February. I don't think I got to see Dominique onto my graduation, which would have been in May, around that time frame.
Oh
So
my goodness.
I did see JR in between. Like I think he came after my basic training was over because as soon as basic is over, you go straight into the next training. There wasn't like you came home and did anything else. And then while you're in AIT, you would then get your first assignment. And my first assignment happened to be in Germany. By the time I was getting that first assignment, Jay was going to warrant officer school. So he was going to Alabama to be a warrant, to be a pilot there. So we actually set our marriage pretty much on the kind of like that deployment cycle, gone here, back home there, gone here, back home there.
That's intense.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I,
Oh my
I
gosh.
I can't imagine.
I like can't either.
I can. I'm just trying to wrap my brain around that right now.
I had families who took care of the kids when we didn't have both of us around. And when we talk about, your kids grew up in the village, that's what we did with them, both of them.
Like they wouldn't let you bring your baby
So we
to
did when
even
I
live
was
with you?
so in Germany, when I got to Germany, I found out I was pregnant. We actually, obviously, miraculously, within 2 weeks, got me knocked up. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. We did, like I said, we talked about it, and then it happened.
Wow.
It
So
was just
I,
meant to
Wow.
be.
so I got to, and it's funny because I got to Germany and found out I was pregnant. And then I remember this day, the doctor had said to me, and I had a leader, another leader who was my NCO, non-commissioned officer. He was there with a doctor, and the doctor says, "Congratulations, you're pregnant." And the leader looked at me, and he looked at the doctor like, "This is not my baby. She's my soldier. I don't know." And they sent me to the pharmacist to go and get my drugs, a prescription. So I went to the pharmacist and actually met another soldier who happened to be friends with me, who actually looked after me through my first and second trimester. But the first thing she says to me, which was funny, she goes, "You just got to Germany and you got knocked up at the same time? Who was it?" I'm like, "Wait." I said, "It was my husband, by the way." And I said to myself, do I have to justify who was it? So I started my German experience pregnant with Stephen while I was waiting for Dominique to come down with her dad to Europe. But he was still in school, so I couldn't just go back and get her. And at that time, I was still in the barracks. But the barracks, you can only be there up to like 6 months, and then you got to be rehoused because then you're getting ready for your baby. So the military do look after you. Everything was free, it was taken care of. I found myself a German midwife. Her name was Frau Wagner, the best midwife I've ever experienced. I kid you not.
Awesome. I love midwives. They're so awesome.
And she had delivered so many American babies. Like, I tell you, I find something and I say, "You're going to be it." So I said to her, "You're going to deliver my baby." So Frau Wagner lived so many miles away from where I end up living because they told me you can pick any of these hospitals around the neighborhood that you live. And I was like, "Well, where is Frau Wagner? She's in a hospital over there." "Well, we're going over there." So, and even when my water broke for Stephen and we got in the car, Jaya was with me at the time, and Dominic was, all the kids, we were all together as a family when Stephen came. So when my water broke, we got our friend who was German to come and get Dominique because she also had another playmate. So that was good. And I got my bag, we got in the car, and then Jay is driving. And then he says, "Why are we passing our local hospital to the clinic?" And I looked at him and said, "Have you met Frau Wagner?" And I was like, "Until you meet her, this discussion is not had. She's gonna have this baby."
Frau Wagner. I just like
I
love
love
the
it.
name.
Like I can
So
picture
Make that up.
efficiency. She just oozes efficiency to me. Like the name, I bet you everything was perfect.
my Frau, listen, when I think even before I broke my water, I used to go to her and I actually did acupuncture. I think that also because I was very stressed at the period of who I was working with at the time. And she did a lot of home remedies on me. Even the birthing clinic was amazing. They had a water birth. They even had things from the ceiling where you could sit in and help your pelvis civics, just to expand. I was bouncing on the ball. I don't know what else I didn't do. I didn't summit to anything like that, but I did every other thing that I would never have imagined doing in any other country. Because Germans, they are very efficient in how they, mastermind stuff. So she exposed me and gave me so much knowledge, and that's why I actually picked us like, oh, we're gonna do this with her. And then he just came along. He was like, yeah, yeah, we're gonna do this with her. I wanted a
Smart man.
natural. I know he did. I wanted a natural birth. It didn't happen, and I tried and tried and tried, and eventually she came up to me and she said, "Sarah, we have to do a C-section." And I was like, "Oh no, come on, the second time around." And then she did assure me that I was not going to go under, which was the best because I was awake. Garfield was there, so he was there. I was awake, and when I got to see Stephen hand it to me. So that was
Aw.
the best. I
Yeah.
mean, I think going back in both of them, having to have experienced Stephen's birth kind of erased everything that happened in Dominic's birth. So, but yeah, Brown Wagner. Huh?
They're very different experiences, Germany and Antigua.
Yes. When you find the person that's going to have your baby, stick with it. Don't ever change and be like, oh no. Because I don't like going surprises. I need to know what's going to happen. How is it going to happen? How long my pain is going to be? Because I'm also that person. I don't like pain. You told me the pain is going to be 5 hours. It's 6. What's going on?
That's so different from my birth or my getting ready to give birth, I guess, because I went to a regular office. I met with everyone in that office because anyone could be on call to give birth. But then guess what? They did the office decided that they are no longer in with the hospital. So when I went to give birth at my hospital, I had a completely different person. I didn't know the surgeon. I didn't know the
No.
doctor at all. So it's different to me hearing that you got to pick someone and say you're delivering and that's it. I got hi, my name is Dr. So-and-so. I'm going to deliver your baby. And actually, I had a different doctor deliver my baby than the person who was with me through labor because they switched shifts at that
Oh my
time.
gosh.
So I didn't know.
That is wild. That's wild too, to me.
Yeah, Tessie, you have a midwife.
Yeah.
You have
I have the same midwife
yeah.
4 times. Yep. I'm with you. I'm with you. Just stick with what's good, what you know. And I love it too because we built a good relationship. We had a bond, we had a relationship. She knew me, I knew her style, I knew what to expect. There were no surprises. It's a very good experience.
Hey, Sarah, can I backtrack for a second? I wanted to ask you about how the military supports pregnancies and women who are pregnant. What is their maternity leave like? Is it different from Claire's?
Oh, let's get back to that. So, when I had Stephen, at the time I had her a C-section. The military gives you 6 weeks instantly. However, if you do have complications and the doctor does sign up to you having anything extra, I think I got 8 weeks because I fought for it. I was like, no, I'm not ready to come back. And then you had 180 days to get yourself back into shape because technically you still had the baby weight. Yeah, that was then. And why I'm saying then was because the military realized and found out that they were damaging a lot of female soldiers who gave birth over the years, and they did a lot of research, they did a lot of documentary, they took a lot of notes, and they changed the way they had done it in the past to now you have more time off with your baby. I don't remember if it's more than 6 weeks, but I do believe you could get more time off to be at home with your child, and you don't have to get back into shape of a year. So they've extended a lot of the stuff. I do want to tell you what I was instrumental in changing while I coming back to stateside from Germany. We didn't have lactation rooms or where we can pump as soldiers. So when I was pumping for Stephen. Actually, I only lasted 6 months because afterwards I was like, give him the butter. We're not doing this no more. And then that's another story to start. But when I used to work in Germany, I was in the cash cage. And when I had to pump, it was I had to pump in my cash cage, and the cage was full of foreign currencies. So it was like,
Oh my
there was
gosh.
no privacy, there was no go here,
Wow.
go there. But what I did become a pioneer and part of, it happened in Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And there was a lady who says, hey, we are doing postpartum pregnancy exercise to get the soldiers back into shape. And I joined, I became a facilitator with them. And then they pushed, and we got um, presidents on getting rooms in different locations. And we named it lactation rooms for moms in uniform to go and breast pump when we had to. I was just so honored to be part of the team because we actually hit like national TV, and we started the trend in El Paso, Texas, and it went to all military bases. I don't know if it's still active, because I left active during 2016. But while I was in the training division in Fort Abrams in Virginia, they had a room there, and I was walking past. I was like, oh, my hard work has come to fruit.
That has to be
So
so
Wow.
satisfying.
there's a
But
picture. It's about, I think, 10 soldiers. They're in uniform, and they're holding their babies, and they're breastfeeding in uniform while holding the baby.
Oh,
oh,
It,
aw,
it is
I
cute.
love
it
that.
is it's a touch because the military could be a very hard place. While I was in infantry unit battalion in Bliss as well, it was a very small amount of females, and for the most part, they made us feel like we were men. And I used to tell them in the military, I am a female first before the U.S. Army. I'm a
Mhm.
woman, so if I'm not able or capable, you must know that I do need help. However, you don't have to, belittle me because I am not that, big of a deal. And uh, it was a hard work because sometimes, you're in that fight and everyone's supposed to be equal, but we wasn't all developed equally because we had women who had children at home, but we had to call the service came first, and we just dropped everything and we got on that bus and go. That's a multitasking mother because then she's leaving her kids with her family or friends, or she's leaving her kids with, finances. But when it comes to, wartime, or, the call needs to be in, that comes first.
Wow. So I have a question. When you were in the military and you said, I am a woman first, how did they respond to that?
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's interesting. So
I
I
know that's a
think
loaded question.
it it is. It is.
Can't imagine it was well.
It didn't,
No.
some people didn't receive it well because I mean, at the time we didn't have any women rangers, or we didn't have any woman who was first to do anything man driven. So it was more or less you shut up or you just get on the bus and gotta, get on with it. And a good example, the one thing I do remember was my plaque. If you know any military person, they would tell you that accolades is on the wall, and everyone's got plaques from different units. And it was very masculine to me. So I said, no, my plaque, which is going to be on my wall, is going to have a touch of lilac and pink because I think of breast cancer for pink, and then lilac is also part of like domestic violence. So I always put those colors together because it significantly reminds me of the struggles that we go through, even while we are dealing with the military as as a whole. And I remember this officer, I think he was a first lieutenant. First lieutenant said to me, well, that's not the military colors. I'm like, military doesn't have a color. We all wear the same uniform. So we are blanketly the United States Army. That's number one. I have no doubts about that. But then when my uniform comes up, I am Sarah. I am Sarah Humphreys. I'm a wife and I'm a mother. And I don't know if I had pets too as well, but those were the things that mattered to me. And if I'm going to have an accolade that recognizes me for the hard work I've done in the military and is going on my wall, I think I should be able to pick the pictures, the color that needs to go on the wall. And he kept quiet about that. So I think sometimes if you push back to the fact that you remind them of being a human, they are mindful of that. But most of the time, if they're very old fashioned and they think back to this is what the military has been 100 and well, we're 250 years old right now, things have changed. Things have changed. We do have a lot of women has won accolades of being a ranger. They graduated. That's a very difficult school. Even men don't graduate from that. So when we have a woman ranger who's doing that right now, I think she's holding the highest rank in the military. That's an honor alone. And then, we have first the pilots, or we have, Black Hawk pilots. We've come a long way. And we do sometimes forget about recognizing the differences between the male and the female species in a very strict environment. But the bottom line is, as long as we're in the uniform, there's only one goal, the mission first. And then the warrior ethos of the military, the soldiers never leave anyone behind. That is everybody. But the fact that sometimes when you put the uniform off, those people that we're with, they also have their own struggles, mental health. And that is where I think the military is coming to place the mental health first. Unlike in the past, it was never there. We didn't speak about it. It was a stigma. Nobody's going to tell somebody else, I'm going through a hard time. Because back in the day, we just say, hey, brush it off. We got to push through. I call that positive, negative, positive, emotion.
Yeah, speaking of that, like how does the military handle if you do have postpartum depression or emotional and mental challenges after birth? Are they supportive?
They
or were they?
They are now. We have a program that became very strong in the last, I think 2014, I would say I recognize it being bigger than it was. It's called behavioral health. I did join it when I came back from Egypt because I started realizing that I was having a difficult time of assimilating a normal life in comparison to being deployed in a combative life. I wasn't sleeping well, and in Egypt for a year, I would sleep with the noise of weapons going off, and I could sleep.
Wow.
But when I came home, it was quiet, and I'm like, I'll be sitting up like, what is going on? It was crazy.
Never heard that sound on a sound machine before.
Yeah, right?
That'd be a first.
It got to a point, like, I was like, am I normal? And I had to talk with most of my other veterans, and, we would have similar conversations. We wouldn't want to talk about our experience with anyone who has not been in that environment, because we feel like you might not understand how our brain is ticking, but for us to survive the last 12 months being downrange, we had to force our mind to just take one step at a time. So when you come back to normal life, everyone has grown a year ahead of you. You're still stuck on the moment you got off that plane, or the moment you had a combative or a traumatic experience. And I had quite a few of them. So it's like I could joke about them now, but then it was like, man, is that normal? And I think I had to come to terms that the things that I experienced downrange are not normal. But I had to accept how to deal with it when it comes into my normal life.
Yeah, that's got to be absolutely, like you said, surreal, because you have two young children. You come back from Egypt and your kids are a year older, and your kids, they change so much in a year. Who are they? And you have to reconnect with them. And at the same time, you're not living in a place where gunshots are going off all the time. It's more like, the kettle's going off or something like that, like normal. So do they have you go to group therapy? Does the military have you go to individual therapy? Do you just network in a community? How does that work?
So they provide you the resources, but they don't, it wasn't said that you need to go. It was more or less like, if you want to go, this is what we have. So you kind of like have to uh, drive yourself there. Because if you ever joined the military anytime before 2010, everyone before that time, our drill sergeants who trained us in basic training, and I say this kind, we are trained to push through pain because pain is gain. They never sat us down and say, if you have something going on, you have someone to talk to. Now, were there a lot of people killing themselves, like suicide rates? Yeah, we have it then, we still have it now. But to talk about, to say, let's talk to someone before you harm yourself, that wasn't there. They would just say to you, do a self harm? And obviously the answer is always going to be no. Because nobody wants to say, oh, yes, I'm thinking about that, because then it's like a stigma, like blackball, or you're not going to get promoted kind of deal. And then who's going to answer, yes, I want to self-harm? Because then you have to look at, what are the signs? The signs that give us signs of, oh, this person's going to give away all this stuff. This person is not going to be happy to go out places. They give us all these little signs, but they don't tell us, like, if you feel this way, or if you have this way, or what you're going through, you can always pick up a phone and call somebody tomorrow or tonight or, day after. So healthcare was not strong. I actually had to find my healthcare, and I think I actually was glad to have family who understood. Like Sandra has been, and she's still with me, has been there from the get-go. And I depended on her being my reasoning, because sometimes I'll be thinking like, okay, I'm gonna do this, but then I'm thinking, is this normal? Because of my other fan of the military says you can do it, but then the civilian says, no, you shouldn't do that. You should think, because it's kind of like, well, what is normal? What is wrong? Good example in Amazon. I want to talk to them I want to talk to my employees like I'm talking to my soldiers. When I talk to my soldiers, I'm very firm and hard, but I can't bring that into Amazon, because I'm going to get fired, or they're probably going to call me. I'm going to get arrested and fired because I probably put my hands on somebody. But my soldiers, I could be like, I would rough you up. We could rough together and we could work this out. But the civilian, they're going to get me arrested, and I don't know what could happen. So sometimes when I come back from drill and I'm in the warehouse and I'm looking at them, in my head I feel like, oh, you could do some push-ups, and then I'm thinking, hi, how's your day? Do you know I could just get you some, resources? I'm thinking about something. Listen, y'all, you need to follow this rule. This is step 1, 2, 3. That is what my other head is saying, but what comes out my mouth is so like, you need help? Okay, this is the number. It's like I have 2 Sarahs going on. So when I'm done to
that must be so hard. I feel like I can kind of relate, because I want to like scream at my children, but instead I'm like nice.
Same.
Yes. Times
it's
up
like
by 10, because things are going at work, and I'm thinking, oh, I haven't got time for you. And I look at my partner and I'm like, Jesus, take the wheel. So you want me to help you fill out this form? This is where your name goes.
Oh my God. So I'm curious, how did your whole military experience shape your motherhood mindset, I guess? Because, a lot of moms can get into the nitty-gritty daily routine. Did you feel, when you were with your kids, like, how did that affect your mindset when you were with them? You know what I mean?
I overindulged with my kids when I had the opportunity. And I think that's where, if you hear of the theme or the word army brat, that's because of what you just said.
Oh, so, I never really understood that term.
And that is a true term, army brats. The reason why they are army brats, and this is where I realized, is I love my kids so much. I could almost strangle them sometimes. But I love my kids so much that the moments of where I would overindulge in taking them out, I would spend so much of my time and fun to do stuff with them because in my mind I'm thinking any minute now I have to go back and do the army stuff. So we spend a lot of time traveling, or we spend a lot of time going to the museum. I did a lot of investment in um, push it into them. Dominique, gosh, Dominique, I got her exposed to so many different things. Like I think when she was 4, I got her to learn how to play piano. I got her to learn how to swim, and if she fell in the pool with her clothes on, she would know how to survive. I did so many different things with Dominique. Like I even got both of them learn how to play the guitar at one point. I threw Stephen into an after school like CAP, Civil Air Patrol, so he could get into flying. So there's always something. I'm always looking for
Wait,
things for them to
yeah.
do.
So Stephen can fly now?
So Stephen has been taking some flying lessons. Yes, he wants to be a pilot like his dad. But this is another thing that I also did. I give them all the tools to set them up for life, and I give them the ability to choose your path to make you be what you want to be. Because of that, brat, if you don't have that kid aligned to doing, like I didn't want to be like my dad and tell them that you are, you must, you will, and you shall obey. I say, hey, I'm giving you all these cards. I want you to choose an interest. They're like, I don't want to. This is too hard. You're taking time away from me. So now I'm sitting there going, you're 18 years old and I want you to grow and leave the house so I could have an empty nest by the time Stephen gets to 18. But I've come to terms with the fact that I love my kids regardless of what path they choose. And if they do choose to go to the military, I will support them, but they need to go Air Force. That's the only thing I put my foot down. Do not go into the military, the army. Do not, do not
Oh
do it,
wow.
but you shall. I'll take you to the Air Force recruiter tomorrow, and that's it. Um, So the military did design me to be more, when I'm attentive, I'm there because of timing and structures of things that could move or be um, not flexible. So I'm very flexible with them. And I think that's allowed them to accept my falling through if I can't make things or if I can't do that. They're acceptable. I know the amount of times I have missed their graduation at middle school or high school, and they are so, oh, it's okay, mommy. And that's because of all those years of not being around. But it also breaks my heart that even when I'm not there, it's something that I have accepted, but it's also something that is heartbreaking. I'm trying not to not be there. So there are moments like graduation. At one point, Dominic was like, I don't want to walk. And I was like, you are going to walk because I want her to have that experience of walking, receiving your diploma, no matter what, all those things need to be celebrated. Uh, I'm so used to being, all the success that I've done, I kind of put them on the lowest shelf. And then, and I
Mhm.
actually had to remind myself, oh, I did do this. And just listen to when you were introducing the podcast, I was like, wow, Diana make me feel like a superwoman. I don't feel like a superwoman.
You
But
are.
I was like,
You
wow,
are.
that is amazing. I did that. And I'm looking at myself like I'm an outsider, but
So how do you feel like you would be like just like imagining how do you think you would have been as a mother if you didn't take that military? Like what do you think that would have looked like?
I would be like my mom. My mom was a quiet, gentle uh, instructor. Even though she wasn't gentle, but she, on the current, she was very instrumental in pushing things through. But outside, like everyone would say, your mom was a gentlewoman outside the house, but at home, she's like a like a Viking. So um, I lost my mom when I was 21 years of age, and it was the hardest experience to ever lose someone close to you. And she died from cancer, and she died actually in my apartment on my bed. So it wasn't like was far away. It was just close. But the experience of not having my mom around, going through my birth and having to be a mother or getting married, um, if I didn't have the military, I think I would have been a little gentle with life. I wouldn't be a lot harder and stronger. I might have taken more time. I would be more like a mom's at home because my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And trust me, she wasn't a mom just to me. She was a mom to all my friends. I had friends coming looking for my mother, and I'm like, she's not your mother. Like they had me too. But I walk in and they're having a deep interaction. And I'm thinking, the funny part, my best friend Titi and I, we grew up where we knew each other from 11 years old, and we're still best friends. And up to this day, Titi's mom was like always busy running around, while my mother was a standstill. She kind of held the ground. But all my friends, to include Titi, was always around my mother. And I'll be like, you have a mom too. But the funny part is, none of us would go around everybody else's mom because they were very hard. But my mom was like, oh, Carl, let me give you a hug. And I was like,
Wow.
was I jealous? I was. I wouldn't lie. I was a little
Oh,
Oh, that's so sweet.
what is so special about that? She is mine. But that was her. So I think, and then I noticed that I do that with Dominic's friend because she has a friend who was always around us. Her name is Serene. And if Serene was upset, I would see her from a distance. I'm like, Serene, come here. And I'm like, what's going on? And Serene would tell me. And then Dominic would like, she didn't tell me that. I said, because she's not talking to you. But she's talking to me. So, and then I realized, like, oh my gosh, I'm just playing the script of my mother's book.
you're the
That's
best of both.
amazing.
You're the best of both. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Oh, and have one last story, and this is it. This is funny because Sandra always picks on me for that. So one day, Dominic woke up and she says, Mommy, I don't want to go to school today. So I said, oh, you can stay home and have a mental health day from school. So Sandra, my sister-in-law, went to work and she told somebody else who I've never met what I did. And the first thing they said is your sister-in-law black? Because why, why would she leave her daughter home to have a mental health day? And I was very offended. I was like, I said, my daughter just wanted to have a break from school. But I was thinking to myself, what? Because back in the day, if any time you were sick or anything at all, most of our parents would send us, to school, like you go to school. But I
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
remember why I did that when my daughter was, and this is what saved my life and why I'm still sitting here. When I was in boarding school, and by the way, I did put myself in boarding school, my parents didn't. My father would tell you that. I filled out the form, did everything, and I put myself in boarding school. And he couldn't believe I did it, but I did. And
Wow.
I know it's weird, but I did it. But I told my mom this day I wasn't feeling well, and I was in a military boarding school in Nigeria. So she went up to the soldier and said to him, I need to take my daughter home because she's not feeling well. So the soldier, and I was sitting there, turned around and said to my mom, "Ah, all the parents always complain about keeping the kids in school. Like you always come." And my mom straight up told him, my daughter is my daughter and she wants to go home, she will go home. I was like, wow, my mom is fighting for me. So I was alleviated. But the one time I lied and told my parents I was sick, I was like really like, oh, I feel sick in the dog and this and that. I was faking it. I really was. And my dad, like I told you, my dad is a helicopter parent. He says, oh, let's take her home. Because my father was the one who wanted us to be at home all the time. My mom wanted us to leave and, fly away from the nest. He brought me home, and I was telling my friends from boarding school, ha ha ha, I'm going home. So the next day, my mom says, let's take you to the doctor. And at that point, I was like, no, I think I'm better. She goes, no, we're going to go get checked up. I found out I had appendicitis on that first day.
Oh,
I know.
What?
I know. That is, like I said to
Oh
you,
my
that
God.
was my saving because I was taking medication for stomach ulcers, but it ended up being appendicitis. And The
What?
doctor says, wow, you're lucky you came home because you wouldn't be sitting here. And I sat there like I would never lie ever again. But the lie that I
Oh,
did,
oh my God, that's amazing.
so I look
Wow.
back and like, hey, I lied. But then I was like, I wasn't expecting to be in the operation table the next day, but okay.
Wow, that's incredible.
That is
So
an
do I have
incredible
to kill my
story.
kids for lying? I don't have a go at them. I just tell them that please be truthful to me. Just let me know. I don't want to ever have to put them in the situation that I went through. So yes, my daughter wanted a mental health day. You got a mental health day.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. So, mental health and all that stuff. How does transitioning from Army to Amazon, how did that work? Like, does Amazon embrace Mental Health Day? How does that? What is it like?
Something tells me no, but let's hear it.
From the horse's mouth. Mental health day in Amazon. I say this, the Army's experience and Amazon experience is almost like there is no line. The lines is so shaded, like it's very, very, what's the word, cut up, jagged. And the reason being, because Amazon is such a high tempo environment, the promises and the concepts that they have driven and designed are great. But then you're in an establishment that you're working with human beings. I would tell you one thing that Amazon has done that I haven't seen anywhere else. They provided a lot of resources. The first year that I was with Amazon, I worked as an aerial manager. You work 10 hours a day. The breaks and the time off to get yourself reset and reshaped was hard. Because in the military, I'm used to having an hour and a half lunch. Like, oh, I have an hour and a half. I can take a nap for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can't do
that's
that in
true.
Amazon because I'm trying to get those boxes to the customers. And if I don't get those boxes on the truck to get to the delivery station, it's going to go against me. And then I have to motivate all these associates that work under me. I tell you what I did. I'll be honest with you. I bribed a lot of my associates to work for me. Like I would be bringing them candy. I had a whole ton of candy or cookies. I'm like, you get a
Oh,
cookie, you get a cookie. I had to invest in
You were
them.
Oprah.
And that was a Nigerian mindset of
yeah.
how am I going to motivate these people to work for me so that I can get this done and go home and take a nap. But my shift in Amazon was night shift, so we called it the vampire, like they call it graveyard shift. You come in at 6 and you leave at 6. It was the hardest, and that was it. It broke a lot of me because it was a year straight. What we had requested to a lot of our leaders at the time was, could you change so that we can all have a break from this overnight long? Sometimes, if you don't have leaders that understand um, the employees, they're going to get people leaving. So the high turnover as people leave Amazon because they're bent out. Bent out was something that is almost invisible. You don't see it coming till you hit the wall and you hit it so hard that you knock yourself out. That's what I call
Yeah.
bent out. So Amazon does have a lot of resources. They do have a lot of free therapists. They give you a lot of sessions for free. And then if you're smart, you could get it free for the rest of the year. Just do what I tell you, not what they say, kind of deal. What I had to remind myself every time I walk into my building today, because now I'm a human resources, unlike before I was a manager, so I was on the other side. But as a HR, I'm the one who's providing the resources. I'm the one who's providing the tools and the direction of where the associates need to go. I put myself in their positions. And I think empathy is the only thing that could identify when you see someone who's about to hit the wall and how can you assist them not to get there. So I do a lot of reaching out to all my area managers and like, hey, how you doing? What are you doing at home, like on your days off? Because the hours are long, which is 10, which is a whole day. And what Amazon has done is they've reduced the days from like normally you go to office from Monday to Friday. They do 4 days, but you get 3 days off unless we have like the high events, which is like I call it Christmas in July, our prime. And then we have Thanksgiving, which is the other big event. So we do have a lot of moving pieces. Um, if I compare the resources that Amazon do provide to us with other companies, I would say they have got some top-notch resources. And it's so available on your phone. So it's a 24/7, it's right there. I love it. I wish I had that going through the military or I had that visibly to other people. But do we use it as human beings? No. Sometimes we just want to hit that rock and then be like, oh, I need help. Instead of a hand up before you get there, like, I feel like I need help, or I don't feel like myself, or I want to talk to somebody because I don't think that my what I put in and what I get out is just good. But yeah,
What? Why did you choose human resources in Amazon? I mean, there's just so different departments in Amazon. How did you fall into that?
I did human resources in the military. That was my background. That is where I actually love to strive in. Helping and reaching out to people was something I've so it's kind of like my I don't even know if it's a love language. Maybe it is a love language, but
Yeah.
the human resources in the military is totally different from the human resources in the civilian world. In the military, it was kind of like you want to make sure that we have the right number of personnel in the right location who have the right job title, the right rank, and the right, everything had to match. We could have one job opportunity, but that person had to have the experience to hold this job, so they had to be an expert or a subject matter expert of their skills. The human resources in Amazon were purple. Remember I said to you in the very beginning, I like pink and purple? I was just drawn to it's a color thing. I saw purple and I was like, I want to wear that. One day, my retirement house would be the brightest Pepmo Bismol house or lavender crazy, whichever one comes first. And they'd be like, I know that woman that lives there.
I want you to have
I've seen
flamingos
I've
on the
seen
front
them.
lawn, please.
Yeah.
Sarah, you were like, I don't know, like you transformed yourself in so many ways in your lifetime. What do you wish more moms knew about healing and transformation?
I think it's a drive to do something different on a different result. Um, I like the idea of revamp. I call it revolving. Like, you know, you could be a cocoon and next minute you're a butterfly. I love the fact that the journey of the experience, what's it going to take you there? Living in Nigeria, then in the UK, transitioning into the Caribbean, then into the US, then taking different job assignments to Germany and to Egypt. I think it all stemmed down to my mom. She always told me as I was a kid, the world is your oyster. Never let anyone ever dim you out of wanting to be who you want to be. I don't know if I'm trying to figure out if what I want to be. I don't want to be the king of Nigeria, or, I mean, I'm a princess because I feel like I am always going to be a princess. But I am not going to walk around and be like, oh, well, a royalty. No, none of that. But I do feel like the little small steps that I'm taking, even though I feel like it's small and tiny, I always looking for something else to do. Like today, my goal for the next 5 years is I want to get a farm. I want to have to grow my food and be self-sufficient. I don't know where this farm is going to be. I don't even know how I'm going to get a farm. I don't even know anything about being a farmer. But I do remember my mom, she was a nurse, but when we were growing up in Nigeria, she had a chicken farm. Like I remember running around chasing these little chickens. And then I saw them grow up and I see how she used to separate them. And, next thing we had them for dinner. Yes, we did cook our chickens too. But so all those, I think having to be exposed by the ability of my mom transcending from being in Antigua. She came to England, married my dad, found herself in Africa, and became more African than that father because everyone thought that he was a foreigner. He was not. She was a foreigner, but she transcended so many different places and was able to help and assist people. Um, so I think what drives me is what's the next best thing? That's always in the back of my mind. What's the next best thing? Because sometimes I kid you not, I failed at so many things. I'm great at failing because I'm always like, how did I fail this and what can I do better? I could have been a millionaire by now. I just look at that, I'm like, oh, lost that. Okay, next. But I don't give up on and again I with the kids I do feel like having children those two that I have pushed me to look at future goals, not for myself, but for them. Because when I do feel like I pass away, that they have something to follow through. So I think about my parents. What did they not do? I don't want to be like my mom. I don't want to be like my dad. But I'm looking at their examples of what I had learned as a child and be like, I can take this little bit from him, this little bit from her, and dissect it and make my own.
So, one last thought, Sarah. What pearl of motherhood would you leave with our listeners?
Enjoy every step of your motherhood. Each of your kids, every one of them is different. Learn from them. I am learning so much from my teenager and my adult child. And I'm afraid to tell them that I'm learning from them. So I kind of low key be like, oh, okay. I always believe what you leave behind is what your kids are going to say about you and your grandkids and your great grandkids, because that's the most important story ever. Nothing about the failures, nothing about, forgetting birthdays or whatever, but those little legacies and nuggets, I think they're instrumental. They will form them to be great individuals and probably be pioneers of the future.
That is awesome. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. I can definitely see why Diana wanted to have you as a guest because it's so dynamic. I didn't know anything going into this. Like I was completely learning along with the listeners. Diana maybe had more of a backstory, but wow, that was really awesome.
I've known Sarah for almost 20 years now, and I learned things about you that I did not know about. So, Sarah, thank you so much. You are so inspiring.
Hey, thank you for having me. This is my first podcast interview. Geez, this is going down the book of my record. Like I did this, but it's good to enjoy our great small wins because when I say great, my journey was inspiring, but me inside of it, I'm like, this is my everyday life. I'm just plugging. But thank you for having me, for telling me how I could be influential in some other ways. But I appreciate this, really do.
No, this was inspiring. Thank you so much.
Bless you.
Thank you so much for listening to us at Pearls of Motherhood. Please feel free to contact us at pearlsofmotherhood.com and to email us at ideas@pearlsofmotherhood.com. We're also on Instagram at Pomcast. That's POMCASTS. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode or any ideas for future episodes. After all, we are a podcast for all moms and would love to know what you'd like to explore. New episodes will drop once a week on Friday, so stay tuned for more fun and more pearls. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.